Hi everyone, Tom Simmons here with another installment of our lessons for personal financial literacy. And I'm going to be doing maybe 3 or 4 lessons on the issue of debt and interest. Next week we will look at your FICO credit score. The following week we will look at banks and credit unions and the banking system. And then the week after that we will look at very solid tips for keeping your credit card house in order. This week, I'm just going to give you an overview of the concept of debt and credit and its wise use. When I raise the issue or raise the topic of credit and debt, very often there are responses that are from 2 extremes, and they're both equally problematic. The first response I get is, well, no, I'm not going to get into credit, I'm not going to get into debt because it's just nothing but trouble. And the second one is a very cavalier attitude of, yeah, sure, so I got a credit card, I can just use it to buy that new toy I saw. What's wrong with that? So let's take each of those individually. First, the fear of debt, that there's something bad or wrong about it. Borrowing money, or capitalization as some would call it, is how a society advances. It's all around us. I'm coming to you from my home in Chester, Vermont. I'm one of 65% of American households that own a home. Well, I can tell you that fewer than 1% of us who own a home plunked down $250,000 in cash in suitcases at the bank and said, hey, I'm going to buy this house. What we did was we borrowed money. We took a mortgage. We took a mortgage for the property, and we pay it back over time. And it's the same process, really, the same concept as when you take out a school loan to go to school, or a car loan, or when you have a large doctor's bill and maybe they bill you monthly for a certain amount and add an interest fee on it. In essence, they're offering you a loan, and you're accepting it. I want you to imagine a farmer who works sun up to sundown and beyond. His family's out there doing physical labor. They use all manual tools, and at the end of the year he's able to save maybe $1,000 a year. Now let's also suppose that if he had a tractor, he could bring in 3 to 4 times the amount of crops that he could bring in doing it manually. He could sell more, he'd have a larger market, maybe he could do succession crops, plow more land, but that tractor cost $40,000. If he was going to wait to purchase that tractor, when he can only save $1,000 a year, he'd be in retirement by the time he could afford his tractor. And that tractor would no longer cost $40,000. So it might make sense for him to borrow money to get the tractor now. And here's the crux of the issue. The question that has to be asked is the additional revenue that will be produced by having a tractor, is that enough to cover and exceed what he's going to pay for borrowing money? If it does, then it makes sense to do it now. And there are many instances where it makes sense to borrow money in order to make a purchase now. Government does it all the time. When a bridge is failing and is dangerous, most local governments will not all of a sudden charge the taxpayers of the town $2 million in extra taxes and then fix the bridge. That's too much of a hit all at once. And they also will not say, well, we'll just, have bake sales, or we'll raise taxes a little bit, and 40 years from now we'll fix the bridge. What they do is they borrow money. They either borrow it from a lending institution, or they issue municipal bonds, which is a way of borrowing from the public. They get the money now, they fix the bridge now, and then they pay it back over the course of 20 years. That is a standard way of doing business. And in areas of health and safety, it is particularly important to actually take action now. And the only way to do that is to capitalize or to amass funds now and then pay it back over time. So, debt is not bad. Being in debt is not bad. It's actually a normal way of business. It's how most businesses get started. And quite frankly, those nations that have very active banking infrastructures that can lend and that can help governments build roads and communications and infrastructure, they have higher standards of living. Yes, they're in debt and they're paying it back, but again, there's got to be this weighing of the benefits versus the cost of actually obtaining that debt. And that brings us to our second problem, and that's people who are at the other extreme. And those are people who assume that when they get a credit card or they get a loan, that it's free money, as if their income has just increased. Hey, I got a credit card for $2,500. So now I have $2,500 more buying power. No, you don't. In fact, you don't have any more buying power than you had before, because you've got to pay it back, and you've got to pay it back with interest. One of the things we'll be doing in this lesson is looking at the effect of interest on the debt that we have taken on. And that's what a credit card is. It's debt every time you use it. You max out a $2,500 credit card that's got a 20% interest rate on it. That may take you, and you pay the minimum payments. And people get very excited about minimum payments. Yeah, I made my minimum payment, I can make it, it's not a problem. Well, if that's what you're doing, minimum payments on that credit card, it will probably take you more than 20 years to pay it off. And instead of paying off $2,500, you're probably going to end up paying $5,000 or more. A lot of people get into trouble with this because these two concepts of the interest continuing to increase the balance on the debt they borrowed, and their completely mistaken belief that as long as they can make the minimum payment, they're doing something good. I made my minimum payments and they're on time. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that the bank or the lending company, the credit card company, makes their money off of the interest that you pay. And the system is set up so that if you make your minimum payments, you are maximizing the amount of income they can get from you. I wonder how many of you have ever bought a new car or bought a car at a dealership. Invariably, the dealer will ask you, how much do you want to pay a month? How much can you pay a month? They don't ask you what's the total cost that you're looking at for a car, $20,000, $25,000, $15,000. They don't ask what interest rate is of interest to you, 20%, 15%, 10%, 5%. They ask what can you pay, or what are you willing to pay? And you will innocently respond, oh, I don't know, $175 a month, $250 a month. The entire package, and they will come up with a package for you. The entire package they come up with is based on maximizing the interest that they receive over and above whatever they make on the car to maximize their profit. And you're saying to yourself, hey, I make my payments and I make them on time, I'm in pretty good shape. Chances are you're not in good shape at all. If you look at the financial reports of most vehicle companies, whether it's a car company, a tractor company, like Kubota or John Deere, Harley Davidson, you will find they actually make as much or more profit on the interest they charge on purchases directly through them than on the actual goods themselves. And that's why a number of years ago I had a car loan with a bank whose name will go unmentioned, and I wanted to pay it off quicker. I didn't want to pay the minimum payments. I wanted to pay this quicker to reduce the amount of time I had the debt and to reduce the interest that I was paying on this loan. This actually upset them. No, you can't do that. Well, you can do it, but you can't include it with your regular monthly payment. You have to send a separate check in a separate envelope with a separate letter every month, and it got extremely complicated because they wanted to do everything in their power to stop me from paying off the loan early, because minimum payments are set up to maximize what you are paying to them. So for every person who's very comfortably thinking to themselves, well, yeah, I use credit, but I use it responsibly because I've made all my minimum payments and I'm on time every month, you're actually going deeper into debt and paying twice as much as what you think you're paying for the good or service that you purchased. Now, other people will go into deeper trouble. Excuse me. You max out your credit card, over limit fee, then you can't pay it. Late fee, then interest on top of those fees and on top of what you owe. And then the credit card company is nice to you and says, well, we will increase your limit so that now you're under the limit again. And then when they add the next interest charge on top of what you owe, you're over the limit again, you get a late fee again. And what people don't realize is that even if you are paying on time, and even if you are paying your minimums, if you're using more than 30% of your credit card, that's actually a negative on your credit report. You are seen as a poor credit risk if you're using more than 30% of your credit card. So this, again, this is an entire area that we have become very susceptible to what we think norms are. Whether we think credit is bad, it's not. It's how we capitalize, it's how we build, it's how we create safe bridges in a good society. Or we think that credit is income, and as long as you're making your payments, you're doing the right thing. Both of those are serious problems with credit. So what I'd like to do this week, I'm going to ask you to go onto our site and use the credit payment recalculator that we have on the site to show you just how much you are really paying in interest when you only make those minimum payments. So when you think, oh, I can just pay this over time, it's not a problem. And you'll be shocked at how long it takes you to pay it off and how much you're paying. And in the next few weeks, we're going to look at ways to rein in our credit card use and make sure that we are paying what we can pay, and that we are doing it in a way that puts us in control of our finances and our money, and not just doing whatever the credit card suggests we do. Hey, pay $25 on your $2,500 debt and you're fine. You're not fine. We don't want to get in that situation. So, hit the lesson, good luck with it, and we'll talk more next week. Thank you.